The Buzz with Jess Lujan.
Welcome back. I'm here in studio with Lieutenant Governor Guam, Ray Tenorio. We're talking about the police department, or public safety in general. So again, as before going to the break, we said the conversation has changed from cannibalizing vehicles to making sure that these happen, and of course ambulances and all that. That's not the conversation anymore.
No,
that's nice to hear now.
Yeah. No, we went from we improved the police to fire, customs. You look at Department of Corrections, we've improved most of the public safety agencies, and I want to thank Governor Calvo for giving me the opportunity. You know, this along with the DOC stipulated agreement with the federal government. 2 ambulances from more than enough ambulance. We've got enough ambulance to serve the entire island right now. We've got enough fire engines to be able to serve the entire island. We've got hazardous material units that's reestablished. We've got the rescue units have all been bolstered. They used to drive around in some nasty cars that were hand-me-downs for I don't know how many years. But those things have been really, really improved. They got professional equipment. We're working on, through the Interoperable Communication Working Group, on getting a new radio communication system that works off new technologies. We've come a long, long way. Going back to DOC, we've had this stipulated agreement. I've been working very well with the Attorney General, Liz Barrett Anderson. She's been a really great breath of fresh air with dealing with the attorney issues, Cat Focus and other people that on the federal side be able to get us out from under this Department of Justice issue, because giving health care, dental care, and behavioral health services to the inmates and detainees is essential. We've also done a lot of things with rehabilitation. Just now, I think this month, we're having 5 people graduating from the Trades Academy at Department of Corrections who have been availing themselves to skills now. When they get out, they can go out and contribute to the community. They don't have to revert back to crime. These are things that really need to be done. We need to look at long-term solutions. Recidivism of the Department of Corrections is atrocious. I mean, the individuals commit crimes, they go back to the same environment that they came from, and then when they go back, they revert back to crime, and because they have no other recourse, they find themselves back in jail.
Well, Gov, one of the things as well here is the recidivism of these folks up at DOC, and the governor has over. I think it's the number by the time this airs, that number will probably rise another 2. I think we're at 18, I think.
That's right.
That's right. We're at 18 at this point. The commutation and then transferring, again, of prisoners over to the federal side. How much did this alleviate us in regards to finances?
Well, it costs about $120 roughly per day per inmate and detainee.
Okay.
So you just extrapolate that over the total population of inmates, and we're looking at about $5.1 million just by the individuals that have commuted and have been removed either through the government of Guam or the federal government. Okay. And we're still working with the federal government. We want to thank the Federated States of Micronesia for being a cooperative agent in this, because it's their citizens by and large, but we've also got a citizen from Peru and the Philippines. We've got other individuals. And it's not just about the Micronesians. It's about any person who's not a U.S. citizen who commits crimes, which is eligible to be removed from the island under the federal law and the governor's powers. And so this is, imagine $5.1 million, how much money you can use that money for so many different other things. So the more we do these things, which make a difference in the population, the overtime, and by the way, let me speak to a Panama schedule that I've been told about, that the police department and Department of Corrections are both looking at implementing, which is basically 2 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off, and then 3 days on, 3 days off. You get the full 84 hours if you're on a unit that requires you to have briefing. And you get the ability to reduce the overtime over a 2-week pay work period as opposed to a 1 week pay work period. So this controls and manages the finances of the government. And we want to pay as much as we can to the employees, but we have to manage it, because I'd rather have an officer who's working than an officer who's working overtime. Because their quality of life and their family really takes a hit.
Actually, that schedule that you just read off to me, I mean, it's like, wow. I had friends when I was living back in San Diego who were with SDPD as well as their fire department, and that's the schedules they were on. Some of them, I'm off for the next 3 days.
That's beautiful. I used to love that when I was a cop. I had 3.5 days on, 3.5 days off. It was beautiful. I enjoyed that. And that was just for that week. Now, if you you work with that Panama schedule, you can look it up online. You can manage the monies a lot better. The Port Authority, the Department of Corrections, Guam Police Department, 24-hour operations need to be creative, and these are creative techniques that can and will be used.
And now you're looking at, I mean, you're of course the chief, and your administration is looking at how many people are going to be retiring and all that, and then and so that's all factored in as to when your academies are going to start and all that, and that should also, I mean, that's part of planning, right?
That's right.
I mean, you know, because I remember in the past, I mean, when we were in the legislature, man, all of a sudden there's this deployment and mass deployment and mass again.
You have an exodus of people.
Yeah, exodus of people. What the heck are they going to do?
Sure.
You know, what the heck are they going to do? Are you asking, you know, we got to the point at some point, are you asking the federal government to exempt the Guam Police Department from deploying its people? Because that was a challenge.
That was a challenge. So we've been doing recruitment. I want to thank Brant McCready, outgoing senator, a great friend to the public safety agencies, and a good senator and a representative of the people of Guam, because he passed a bill that requires the Guam Police Department to have 40 recruits per year, because you need to increase over time. You're losing, the fire department and the police department is losing by attrition, either resignation, termination, or retirement. They're losing those personnel. And it's happening on a much more aggressive level now, because they got the 40%, they've already accrued those years, they've increased their total net on an annual basis, and so they retire at a higher level. So they're starting to say, hey, you know, I'm going to go ahead and move on and let the younger guys come in. We've done the promotions, we're still doing promotions now. With the fire department, the announcements were made and they're being filled out now. The same thing for the police department. Lieutenant, Sergeant 2, Sergeant 1, PO3, and PO2. There's going to be a huge number of promotions, and these are things that need to take place. And you know, sometimes we don't do it frequently enough, which is a real problem, because some of the PO1s haven't had an opportunity for promotion for almost a decade, if not more. And so that they really need to have more advancement opportunities. And I think one of the things with the GAI crews and the other public safety agencies I like to see them do is to have some periodic, let's say every 2 to every 3 years. If you don't, you know, promote like in mass like we're doing now, maybe promote 3, 4, 5 people, because that incremental opportunity keeps people sharp, keeps them toned in, it keeps them tuned in, that is, to best practices in law enforcement or public safety issues. That way they're focused on the future. I mean, we haven't had kind of aggressive management in respect to promotions for a quite long time.
And I likewise, it keeps them in the department, because some of the, you know, I mean, we see in the past how again, in the past we have police officers who go to other jurisdictions to be, or jump to other agencies to become law enforcement at an agency, because the advancement, the raises they were going to get, they weren't getting at the Guam Police Department. So Guam Police Department, at that time, we were serving legislature, was a training ground for other jurisdictions.
Yeah, and always has been.
And
one more thing on that, the reserve program. I think, you know, if you look at the military reserves, I want to use the military reserves model, sort of, for the public safety. And here's the idea. If you go through the CVPR, Civilian Volunteer Police Reserve Academy, you should be recruited in a meritorious fashion, same way you would do otherwise as a police officer. So the merit process is being used. Then you put them in training, they finish the training, they go out on the field, they're on patrol for a year. If they do satisfactory performance and they're active duty, they can be used as a pool of resources to fill any given number of police officer, customs, corrections, or even marshals for that matter. The idea is to have a ready reserve of CVPRs, volunteer reserves, that are out on the street patrolling. Now, they have to meet their minimum 40, I think it's 40 hours per month. They get their stipend, but they have active members. So if you have a retirement, resignation, or termination in the police department, the chief of police can say, okay, give me your pool of reserve officers that have been satisfactorily performing and are active right now in the police department. And you can pull any one of them straight into the police department. You'll never have to worry about having another cycle in a regular sense in the future, because you've got all these CVPRs. And that, to me, makes sense, because you infuse the police department with the volunteer reserve officers on a regular basis. They want to stay active because they want to be cops. When the vacancy becomes available, you don't have to wait for the next academy. You don't have a crisis situation. You start to manage the fulfilling of those positions, or the filling those positions within marshals, DOC, customs, police department, airport police, port authority police. So it becomes a ready reserve, just like the military.
Just like military. But let me ask you as well, because when we talk about, of course, you know, GPD and some folks left out of the jurisdiction, I mean, there are some folks, again, that not because something comes out that they have to move, but they're the police department, they're in the police department, they don't necessarily want to get out, but they said, well, there's an opportunity if I'm a cop here. The training as them being a cop here in Guam, does that transfer again to other jurisdictions, other U.S. jurisdictions? And how much,
Yeah, Peace
Yeah.
Officer Standards Training is something that we essentially designed off of other standards.
Okay.
So there are always variations. You're going to find jurisdiction to jurisdiction, there's variations.
sure.
But that's a relatively easy thing to overcome. Because you go to Guam, look, this is what I'm post-certified as. Go over to the States and say, okay, we require you to do these other things that are not under your certification.
yeah.
2 or 3 courses,
Sure,
you're done.
okay.
So there's always going to be those variations.
sure.
You know, it's like,
But they wouldn't have to start all over
right.
again. I
So-
mean, they pick up where they were maybe are lacking.
Correct.
And yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So those are little anomalies and little things, flexibilities or variations, I think, that you would find across different jurisdictions. That's always going to be the case. You can find the same thing, by and large, for other professions.
So, Governor, I assume that again that because there's promotions again that happen, that there's going to be probably an academy for entry level folks then to come in. I mean, you're going to have that cycle, right?
Yes, we are.
To do that, yeah.
And that's true for DOC has an
Yeah,
academy now for fire, and there's going to be a new academy coming up for the police department.
Okay.
And one thing to be considered, the post standards are different now.
Okay.
So now in the future, whenever you apply for these police officers, you will have 800 or more people applying for 30 positions. Imagine that. So we've actually, one of the things we've looked at is putting a English proficiency standard on.
Okay.
So you have to have a Guam driver license, be 25 or 18 years of age or older, resident of Guam for X number of years. Those standards still exist, but we've added one more with the law that says you have to have an English proficiency exam or some demonstration that you actually have English proficiency. So, report writing is essential. To be able to testify is essential. Articulate your standpoint in English is essential. So English now is going to be a new standard in addition to the other basic standards.
So you can be a police officer. I mean, you enter academy when you're 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So
I was.
Okay. So
I was many years ago.
let me ask you this. So a police officer becomes a police officer when it's 18 or 19. How can you enforce a 21 drinking age age law?
Yeah, well, you got employees that can work at the bars right now. They can't drink, but they can serve. That was the nature of the bill. Is that let's not hurt the economy by taking people out of the mix that need to serve. Same thing with police officers. When I was 18 years old, I responded to a domestic violence situation with a man and his wife who were in their 30s. They were fighting, and I was giving them advice at 18. I hadn't been married yet, so it comes down to just knowledge and doing the job as opposed to necessary direct experience or
There we go.
use of the product.
There we go. Take a quick break. Come back. We'll say goodbye.
Sure.
Be right back.